I see that we have a book here called Pete's Night Eyes, and you told me before the show that this was all about kids. So, first of all, I'm intrigued with the title, and what got you into writing books for kids?
Well, I was a lawyer and a crisis manager. I have written a couple books in the past that are law books or history books, but I wanted to write a book about the beauty of the night and to try to teach kids as well as their parents how beautiful it is at night, but you've got to leave the lights behind, because the lights cause your eyes to dilate and you don't see the light, the beautiful light that comes in the night. You have light from the moon, but you also have light from the various human habitation that is in the distance. And I'm a night painter as well as a day painter.
And do you have any kids?
I have 3 kids and 11 grandkids.
Woo!
And this is dedicated to my grandkids as well as my kids. And Pete is my oldest grandchild. And this book goes through not only sunsets, but also the beauty of the night. And it's a quest by his grandson with his grandfather to see a ring around the moon. Now,
since so many kids watch television today, do you still think, and I'm sure I know the answer, do you still think that kids can benefit from reading a book?
Well, this book is meant primarily for parents to read to their very young children. This is designed for like 3 to 5-year-old children.
Okay.
And it's been tested by 2 teachers that taught youngsters for 30 years in kindergarten, as far as the words I used and how they apply to the paintings. And each of these paintings tries to depict some important element of what happens at night and how beautiful it is and how interesting it is and the effect of the moon on the earth. It really has quite a bit of science in it, as well as a story about a young grandchild and his grandfather and the great times they're having together in this quest to see a ring around the moon, which is caused by ice crystals in the atmosphere, which causes actually a rainbow around the moon. So you primarily see a ring around the moon in snow country, but you can see it here on the peninsula with fog.
Did you also do the painting?
I did the paintings. This was when I first started as a painter. So it's a little bit primitive as far as the art, but people tell me that probably my current style is much less appropriate for this book than these paintings that I've done for the book when I was first starting out, which I think are more consistent with what a young child would want to see.
This is the sort of chicken and egg thing. I mean, did you write the story and then have the paintings, or did the paintings come first and then the words? How did that work?
It was kind of a combination. Actually, I had a lot more words in the original proposal, and then these teachers said you can't have more than 1 or 2 sentences for each page. For a young child, they want 1 or 2 sentences. They will absorb that. But if there's a whole bunch of sentences, then they may lose interest. So you turn the picture, but there's a picture on every page and then some words underneath describing what's happening in an interesting way.
It's very interesting, because when you say a certain number of words on each page, that also means you must, I'm assuming, have thought about how long the book was going to be.
Well, I took a class at UCLA on how to write a children's book.
Really?
And they told me exactly the number of pages you had to have.
Which is?
It's either 32 or 36. I think with the cover it's 36. And so I knew how many pages I had, and I had a lot of ideas as far as what I wanted to put in there. So I consolidated it down to 36.
It's probably my British sense of humor, but you know, when you say they tested it out for 32 pages, I can just sort of see all these kids. I mean, by page 33 or 34, they're all getting incredibly bored and sort of falling asleep. I mean, that's a very interesting study to figure out how long a book should be for kids.
Well, that's the 32 and 36 is what the teacher felt was what most children's books. That's what most children's books are for young children. Is that number of pages? It's either 36 or like 64. In other words, you have to double the number of pages. That's just the way it fits together as a production.
Okay.
That's a production issue rather than as far as how much attention they will pay. But the idea is that you probably can read that to your child or your grandchild in about a half hour.
Do you favor?
And you'll learn a lot yourself as a parent.
Absolutely.
And if you just take the kid out when it's full moon and have them not be surrounded by lots of artificial light and let their eyes adjust to the beauty of the night, It's absolutely spectacular. Here in the peninsula, the moon shines on the water.
Right,
It shines in the top of the fog even.
Right.
The lights from the peninsula shine through the fog, and the moon's above. There's so many beautiful things that happen at night. And if you go down, like for example, down near Terranea,
Right.
the moon coming up over Terranea is spectacular. I've painted it many times. It's just spectacular.
Is this your first book?
No, as I mentioned, I wrote a history book that was quite successful when I lived in Pasadena, a history book. And then I co-authored 2 law books.
Do you like writing for kids as opposed to the other
Well,
ones you've written?
with all these grandkids, it was natural for me to write a book for them, basically trying to help everybody understand what I did with my grandkids to try to introduce them to the beauties of the night. And when I kid them about, you need your night eyes. Your night eyes are when you don't have artificial light around, and that causes your eyes to open up to take in the natural light from the moon, or even the reflections. If you study reflections coming across the water from habitation, it's across. You can even see the lights on Catalina on a clear night,
on a clear day,
at the isthmus, and also at the main area there.
So has this given you ideas on other subjects to write for kids?
No, I really am primarily a painter, and I love painting, and so that's what I primarily do. I think this is probably my last book, although I could do another book. But it was fascinating to me that there's so little written about the beauty of the night. That first is for kids. They're afraid of the night. The first thing they do is turn on all the lights. And I like to tell them, don't turn on all the lights. Let's see what we can see without. That's the night eyes. Use your night eyes. Do not use your flashlight.
I know that you told me you may not write another book, but having said that and thinking again about creativity, what advice would you give to someone who wants to write a book about kids?
Well, I think the first is you have a passion for some kind of a message that you're trying to help them understand. Some human element or some natural element, some scientific subject. This is kind of scientific. A lot of the ideas that are in here are teaching them some very basic science about the moon, its effect on the Earth, and also like the phases of the moon, the waxing and the waning.
Right,
you can look
right.
up and tell whether it's getting larger or getting smaller by which side is illuminated. If the right side's illuminated, it's getting larger. It's waxing, it's waning or getting smaller if the left side is illuminated. So there's a lot of interesting my young granddaughter, who was probably 4 years old, and I read the book to her, we're riding along in the car and she looked up and said, the moon is waxing.
Wow.
So it's something that's simple but very interesting, and she sure dazzled everybody else in the car.
Well, you've certainly intrigued me, and even though it's for kids, I think I'm going to go home and read it to my grandkids, but also read it to myself. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed this.
Take care.
Thank you very much.